finishing up where we had just left off on our other video, we were talking about communication skills and the formats for either communicating verbally or in written format, and that it's important to make sure that the receiver of the information understands the intended message and that they don't misinterpret the meaning of what you are saying. And then we move on to workplace stress. So pretty much everybody knows that stress is everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go, home, office, stores, on the roads, driving. If you're at sporting events, there's stress in school and their kids, spouses, you name it. It's got stress attached to it. So, and then one of the biggest forms of stress we find is at work. So, and stress is defined as the manner in which the human body responds to challenges. And some stress affects us physically, some psychologically, some emotionally, in different ways, shapes, and forms. It affects people. High stress levels are proven to adversely impact productivity and interpersonal interaction, hindering organizational effectiveness at your work or anywhere else, really, for that matter. There are some leading sources of stress in a workplace, and that can be managerial pressure, overload of work, fear, unrealistic expectations, extended work hours, and even sometimes minimal responsibility, which I'll explain in just a moment. There's some other factors that can cause workplace stress too, which are lack of job security. If you don't meet your goals at work, it can cause your managers to maybe micromanage the staff. Again, overwhelming workloads of two people maybe being placed onto one person. The job of two onto one. Poor working relationships can also be workplace stress. That can be with management or with other individuals within the company. And then when I was explaining before about minimal responsibility, it includes things such as, say you're a bank teller at a bank, but you actually have a master's degree in finance, so you're not really working in the job that you ideally would like to be working in, or that you are qualified for. So that can lead to stress there as well. Also, insufficient training on jobs can cause frustration and stress, and then not having access to the resources, information, and training that you need for your task completions. So it's important to have that so that that can help with any type of stress issues with training and resources. It is important to note, however, that some stress can be effective in the workforce. It can help sharpen skills and enhance your productivity if you're working on tight deadlines, so that people keep on their toes and make sure they're completing their goals and what they are required to be doing for their performance in the activity that they're working on. However, too much stress can lead to mistakes. Production can decrease. So you do have to find that healthy work balance to decrease stress at work so that you are working productively. And also, if you become overwhelmed or you can't figure something out, you need to reach out and ask for help. Ask your manager, or ask a coworker to help you out, or to help alleviate some of that stress, or help alleviate some of the workload you might be struggling with. And finally, I'm going to talk about some recommendations that I have for the company with the situation that we've got going on with the merger and the morale being low, the stress being up. What are some things that we can do to help people, work through this situation and empower them, communicate, have some interpersonal communication, and how we can alleviate some of that workplace stress for them. So with empowerment, it's especially important not to micromanage employees. I can speak on a personal level with this. I worked for a company last year that the office manager, I guess that was her title, she micromanaged my position. It was it was actually a very challenging position. But she just micromanaged everything I did. I've never been micromanaged before, so it was a really odd situation to be in. I've been self-employed. I've, held other types of management sort of positions before. So to have somebody micromanaging me at the level that I was at was very disheartening, it certainly was not empowering, I will tell you that much. So it was hard. It was hard to work there, or difficult to work there. I hated coming to work. I hated being there. I resented everybody there. And it was just not a good situation whatsoever. So yeah, definitely not micromanaging employees. That does not bring about empowerment whatsoever. Oddly enough, the job that I currently work at is kind of the opposite. They give you sort of free range, a lot of empowerment, a few things here and there for guidelines, but really it's been a work and learn and do things on my own type situation, which is fine with me because I've been self-employed for many, many years, so it doesn't bother me. But somebody that maybe doesn't have the skills and ability that I possibly have in this position might not do as well either. So there again, it's kind of a balance. You can't, micromanaging isn't good, but giving people too much free rein isn't always empowering either. It can create issues because they might not know what to do or how to go about finding work for themselves to do. So some other recommendations for empowerment are to boost employee morale and engage them in their own success, celebrate strengths celebrate accomplishments, things that they do. If they do something well, put them empower them with that particular strength. If they're good at talking on the phone, have them be the person that does all the phone calls for whatever might be going on within the company. Or maybe they need to be in sales where they can do a lot of phone calling. Somebody that has a good writing ability might be a good person to have on the team, working on the social media aspect of the merger, something along those lines. So also remembering that failure does help create learning and holds people accountable too. So don't be afraid of failure within the empowerment. And then just making sure that people understand exactly what the expectations and procedures entail when you're empowering them with abilities and tasks, so that they, like I was just explaining, that they have an idea of what to do so that they aren't flailing around like a fish out of water, not knowing what to do or what they're expected to do. But it is important to let people be innovative and explore, because that creates that empowerment. It also creates new ideas that can help the business grow. And keeping in mind, happy employees make for a happy place to work, helps create buy-in, trust, loyalty, dedication, all those things that we need to make a business successful. And then we need to make sure we're offering continued training opportunities to allow for increased production and employee value. And then empowering our employees in this change process will help in forming accountability for how the new company is going to look and run. So instead of us focusing on how the company is not functioning very well at the moment, this empowerment and involvement will help us create having employees involved in the restructuring and will help create that buy-in needed for the merger to survive. So empowering employees to be able to kind of help get this merger going and get things into place, that's going to be empowering for them and help them come to terms with this merger and all the changes that have to be made for the process to work. When we talk about the interpersonal communication, again, we're a newly merged company. We have the opportunity to combine all this uniqueness of two separate companies into one, and all these employees into one. So we have to be innovative in our new goals, Leadership needs to be innovative and inclusive. We have to keep our values, beliefs, ideas, experience, and skills in mind when we're creating our new business and our new goals and our new values and all the things that we need to figure out in this process so that the two companies can combine effectively and work towards the future. And again, like I was just saying, we need to focus on those goals, and that may be through some collaborative teams that we're going to have to utilize during the process to effectively answer some of the questions that many of the employees have been discussing and are concerned with. Where is the company going? What are they going to do? Where is the main company located? Who's in charge? What is the company going to be doing? What are we going to be creating? What is the focus? What is our new goal? And then we also want to design ways to include all of the processes of redefining the business, which would be like the training, the team building, the innovation, role definition, and levels of ownership into our communication. And then if issues arise in our interaction, delving into the root of that problem and trying to find out a solution is the preferred method of how to handle that situation. We don't want things to fester and become ugly and for people to get angry and quit or say I'm not going to do what they told me to type of attitudes. We want everybody to be on board and to communicate and to feel empowered that their voice means something. And again, communicate. I can't stress how important it is to communicate no matter what part of a business you're doing or what portion you're trying to fix or include or whatever it may be. Communication, absolutely key. I don't care where I've worked, that has been the one biggest issue that I always run into is communication issues. Nobody ever tells anybody what's going on. It's so frustrating, and I don't know the magical answer to that, but doing anything that you can to reach towards those steps, that's all going to be better than not doing anything at all. And then finally, workplace stress. Workplace stress comes in many forms: work overload, long hours, job issues, lack of training, relationships, expectations, unmatched roles. With support and encouragement, people can better overcome these challenges. If we've got the sufficient resources and training to help manage stress, we can do better. Using proactive measures to address stress keeps production more acceptable. And employees need to feel safe and trusting of coworkers and to be able to reach out for help if necessary. And if there is work overload, they need to reach out to someone and ask for some assistance so that they don't get overloaded. And if they need help or guidance, they need to ask for that as well. If there is a personal issue with another employee, we need to address that situation immediately and find out what what's really happening, what's the root cause there. Again, a quick personal note. I worked at a place where I was put in charge of meetings and things like that, and there was a particular individual that did not like me for whatever reason. Never really did find out, because instead of having us collaborate together, we were both pulled into the owner's office separately, given each side of the story, and nothing was ever really remedied. I think that was a bad method for taking care of that situation. I think each person should have been met with separately, and then we should have met together to try to remedy the situation and get through whatever was going on. But anyway, and finally, ideas to help with workplace stress is exercise, yoga, meditation, going out with friends, venting, taking a bath, pursuing a hobby that you might like to do, something to distract you from the stress of work and what's going on there. Sometimes it's helpful to vent to others within the office, and sometimes it's helpful to vent to others outside the office. So just try not to take it out on your family. It's very hard not to do, but at any rate, those would be my recommendations for the company to get through this process and to better make things work. In the end here, I've got some references for you to refer to, and that will conclude our training for today. Thank you for joining me.